somewhere. I'm president of Gallant for YouTube. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Gordon Dymowski. That's my buddy Alan Gallant. We're here to review the movie The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau, starring Tony Randall. Very, very talented actor. I've never seen a Tony Randall movie other than this one, but he's really talented. I enjoyed him.
Oh,
I
Oh,
you
enjoyed
need
him
to
all.
see Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter.
oh yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I really enjoyed it. How long has Tony Randall been a master of sort of makeup effects? That's my question to you guys.
Well, he wasn't actually the makeup
If you-
person. This won the first Academy Award for makeup.
It
William
was
Tuttle.
William Tuttle.
William Tuttle. That's correct.
Cool. Cool. Did Tony Randall start his career on stage? Is that it?
Yeah, he was a
I'm
Broadway
sure, yeah,
actor,
yeah.
and,
Yep.
and fans. Because I think he was in the original stage version of Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter, wasn't he?
I
I
would have to look. That.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a stage version of it. Hell, I'd love to do it.
He typically, Jewel, played urbane sidekick characters for a long time in films. Of course, you end up seeing the culmination of that in a sort of a satirical way with the Odd Couple television series.
Yeah.
Later on in his career, midway through his career, actually, I would say that would be midway through his career. So, but he,
It's a long career.
yeah, it was. I mean, from the 50s on up until he was doing stage work in the early 2000s, I think. I mean, he was still pretty active that way.
He did
Father
he
of
did the
children
George C-
when he was in his late 70s. So I mean,
I think he did the Broadway revival of Inherit the Wind back in the mid '90s with George C. Scott. I think he was in that at one point.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. He could definitely handle that role. He also ran his own theater for a while, his own acting school, and did a bunch of things ancillary to his actual acting career for a while. His
What
artistic.
was his? Do you know what his acting school was like? What his basic training
No.
philosophy was?
I
I'm curious to find out.
really don't know. I think he was probably a probably combination guy. I don't think he was much of a method guy. I think he was, I think he was probably a formulation from the outside, like a lot of the classical actors from the last century were. But I mean, he was truthful to what he was. He was a personality who could mold himself to various roles, which is what I mean, that's also what method actors do in some respects. But putting on the suit had, I think, probably as much influence for him as anything else.
He was going to give you a capital. He was going to give you a capital P performance.
Yes.
Except, then he goes and in the 80s he did Sydney Shore and Love Sydney, the series that followed that, and that was a very nuanced.
It was
very brave.
it was for its time. It was
performance.
incredibly brave. It was, and he had absolutely no qualms about doing it. Of course, being a man of the theater, and somebody that had certainly worked with a great diversity of people throughout his career. As
We
all
think
of
of Will and Grace. We think of Will and Grace as this watershed kind of series, but I think you could easily dial it back to Love Sydney, even though they didn't hit the pedal as hard as they did.
They didn't try to pound it,
and that was even
but
better.
it was there, and it was also not anything that was particularly hidden either. It was of its time. It was kind of that step before you could get a little bit further along and actually have people with more overt characterizations in the LGBTQ vein. But yeah, he was definitely. I'd forgotten all about Love Sydney, actually.
That's a great show.
Yeah.
What? Okay, so Gordon, when did you first see The Seven Faces of Dr. Lau?
This morning.
Me too.
What'd you think?
Well, I'll be honest. I wasn't sure I was in the mood for a film like this, simply because I've been going through a rough time. and I figured at most it'd be one of those where I go like, yeah, it's okay, but it was like it's not the movie, it'd be me, but I love this movie.
I think it's exactly the movie for that kind of mood.
Yeah, I mean it's
Turns out,
enchanting, it's very thought provoking. Um, it's got Barbara Eden with her midriff covered.
absolutely. Either way, she's gorgeous. She's
And
wonderful.
watch as Jewel will say, he hated this movie because there's no poetry or music in his soul.
And no belly dancers either.
Joel, what'd you make of it? When did you first see this? You saw it this morning.
Well, first of all, I prefer Barbara Eden revealing her belly button, but that's just me. No,
Hey, she was a pioneer. That's all
yeah. Joking aside, this was a fun movie. Especially, we covered Cat People. It's fantasy, and this movie is a fantasy western in some aspects. You have the gunplay. You have Tony Randall's character. Dr. Lau provides the magic, and the effects department does a really great job in this movie of convincing you of this circus and this world that exists. And my favorite part of this movie, and I don't mean this, is not just the end, but how he's showing them this sort of apocalyptic event, and by some miracle they end up right back in the courthouse, and I'm thinking that was awesome. How they did that was fucking cool.
It was.
Great job.
And very simply done. It wasn't, the bombast goes, all of a sudden you're there back in sort of the courtroom, as you say, into normalcy, if you will, the reality of the townspeople, right back into that. So
go ahead, guys.
There's going to be something behind him at some point.
A shadow.
It's going to be one of his kids with like he's
the belt's coming off.
Okay.
He's a very gentle man. He would never do that.
Yeah. He's probably going in to kill a cockroach or something.
Yeah.
We always wonder. Anyway, boy, I'm daffy. I'm daffy for this movie. I saw this movie when I was about 11, and there was and it was that great age where you're just old enough to appreciate that science fiction is more than rocket ships, that it has nuance, and that fantasy films have nuance to them. And the Science Museum in town had a festival. They were free 16 millimeter movies. And the second one was the first of the Doctor Who movies. So I was really keen for that because, finally some Doctor Who. But the first one was Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe. I had never heard, my father had never heard of it. And we showed up. And, you see Tony Randall riding a mule. And in 16 millimeter, you can't tell if it's gold. You don't know what it is.
Right.
But I thought, what the hell have I walked into?
It's different. It is
different.
And
then I was just transported. And, it was around the time that I read Something Wicked This Way Comes. And they're very, very, very closely related. Redder is very influenced by the novel. It's a great novel, by the way, that this is based on. And
it's The Circus of Dr. Lowe, right? It's the novel.
Yeah, the book is The Circus of Dr. Lowe. And it's a magnificent read as well. Very political. It's a very pointed, even far more pointed in its satire. But he is the anti Mr. Dark. He is, and there's got to be fan fiction out there somewhere, probably somewhere well written.
Yeah. He's an agent for positive change rather than an agent for just, chaos and destruction. Yeah.
They're like two poles traveling around the country, writing each other.
Yin and yang. Yeah, it's interesting. The thing I found interesting about, and the first time I saw this, I was probably about 11 or 12 years old and saw it on television. And unfortunately, I saw it in black and white, so it did not have a lot of the impact in some of the scenes because the Metro color does add that texture to it. But it was still impactful, and enjoyed it very much. And I watched it again today. and my local library has it, so I popped it on the app and watched it here on my big screen, and I remembered quite a bit about it, but it was interesting to reacquaint myself with the nuances of it as an adult rather than as somebody that first saw it all the way through when I was just a pre-adolescent at that point. You get the big stuff, but you don't get the nuance of the performances necessarily. This was supposed to be a vehicle for Peter Sellers, which is
Why did he not do it?
I
Having
think
a nervous breakdown
he
or
decided
something?
not to engage him because, as far as I know, Tony Randall asked for $500,000 less money. And they said, we think you can do this. We think you can do the multiple characters, which of course is why that Peter Sellers would have been their first choice or the first thought that they had. But I think it was the money at that point in time. By 1964, Sellers was commanding a lot of dough.
I think Randall's much better. If I can speculate,
He's fantastic. I think he's much. There's more heart in him.
yes,
Much more heart than him.
yeah.
A lot of pyrotechnics and comedy and what Peter Sellers would have done with it, but a lot more heart. Tony Randall dealing with the kids. I know that Peter
Now,
Sellers.
oddly enough, circling back, I think Sellers would have made an amazing Mr. Dark.
Oh yes,
Good
absolutely.
God, he would have been terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind with this movie is that in '64, Peter Sellers had like 8 heart attacks in a row.
Yeah, he did.
So that's probably why they didn't have him. It's like, okay, he, it's probably like, oh, I'm going to go do, so Randall was still cheaper, but it was like, oh, okay.
Maybe he'll pop
maybe
on
Peter
set. Yeah, maybe because he probably just, I don't know what he had just done. By that time, I think he'd done the first Pink Panther film that he was in.
Right. He was also married to Britt Eklund, so there's that.
By the way, did anyone notice that the voice of the snake sounds exactly like Wallace Shawn?
Yeah. And I think it's the same actor that played the ostensible bad guy.
Arthur O'Connell.
Yes, I think it's because it looks like it's supposed to be a reflection of his then personality. That's another great thing about this. Everybody's redeemable, even the people that are totally in the wrong. It's kind of nice that way. But Randall's acumen as an actor is fantastic in this. I mean, when you first see him, if you're not familiar with it, you don't know that it's him. The makeup is really good, but also what he does with it. And it bothered me at least as an adult a little bit that he was doing the pigeon Chinese and all of that. But then after a while, you realize he goes in and out of it. He's reflecting back at people what they expect.
That's right, and that's why Mike doesn't hear that voice.
Right.
Because Mike doesn't have those prejudices, those preconceptions. He's just a guy.
Right. Yeah, and the kid too. The kid mostly.
Mike is the kid.
Yeah, when he's talking directly to the kid and he's not covering for something, he goes away from that stuff and he talks to him directly in his normal, what would be his normal character voice for that particular character.
Yeah, even at one point, Randall's character says, "Oh yeah, it slips in and out of time."
Right.
Like, even he admits that, he's not.
That's the mood suits me.
Yeah.
It's a really fun movie too. I love how the printing press is really loud, and then he just points at it and it shuts off. I mean, this is just a fun fantasy movie, and the fact that they mix in some Western elements makes it all the more fun. Speaking as a fan of Westerns, I mean, because anytime you can have guns and sorcery, it's fun.
It's two separate realities, so to speak, in the movie.
Yeah.
He comes in to be a catalyst, so he is a different reality from what they're doing. There's also sort of there's Judeo-Christian morality in this. There is mythology and consequences of behavior via mythological sort of means. All sorts of wonderful stuff in there. I mean, he is at over 7,000 years old, so he's got all of that stuff going on.
Yeah. I really like how they had the abominable snowman Yeti.
I have to
Whatever.
step away for just a moment. I'm
Like-
sorry.
No worries.
I really enjoyed the abominable snowman / Yeti that they had in there. I like how he's charging for peanuts, but popcorn is free. It doesn't work that way at the zoo, but yeah, I mean, I like that. It
Step away
gives
for
it
just a sec. I'll be
uh,
back.
okay. It gives it a very kid-friendly like element. This movie, yeah, it has some dark stuff to it, but it's
Sure.
something. I mean, I'd let my kids watch this movie. It's really fun. Um, what's something that because it gets into fantasy and stuff. What's something that shocked you guys about this movie? Anything?
I didn't remember how brutally honest he was with the sort of pity pat elderly woman character. How brutally honest he was with her as the soothsayer. He's the seer, and I'd forgotten that, and it was like that's definitely designed to let the audience know part of the purpose of Dr. Lowe's presence there is to strip away people's illusions about themselves and to also open their eyes as to who they are and what they mean to each other as a community, and various things like that. So that was shocking to me. That was the one character when he's there, 5 cents, please. He just drains of any kind of optimism. It's gone. There's no optimism there unless it's being fed to him by the person that's sitting in front of him. He becomes this, as he says, mirrors often are ugly. He says it to her. You're mean and ugly. Mirrors are often mean and ugly, and so that's what he's doing in that role.
Yeah, Gordon.
I think the thing that shocked me was the scene with the magician, where he brings up flowers and everyone is like, oh well, anyone can put up flowers. It's like he created these out, and the little kid comes and says, oh well, I think you're the greatest magician ever, because most fantasy films would have taken it to be like, oh, he did that, all he did was flowers,
Right.
and they would like or they think, oh, they did it with strings or whatever. But I like the fact that as the more cynical adults come away, the Mike, the little kid, comes up, and it's almost like a test, like, oh, okay, here's the one kid who seems to have a spark of magic in him in every sense of the word.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's a more profundity than shock, I think, in terms of that, for me.
Yeah.
And this film also has a great tone, because I know a lot of films like this at that time would have been they would have cranked up the positivity and be like very chipper and we're all hopeful. This is a film that it allows itself layers of darkness underneath, where it just feels it's maybe a little bit more challenging film, but that's what makes it worth watching, is that kind of undercurrent.
Yeah, and the typical romance that goes on in Hollywood films of this time, family films, let's have the young couple and all this sort of thing. It's put to good use in this film, I think. Even though, sure, you have the string music and so on, and they're but it's put to good use, because that's part of her illusion with herself, that she can't be in love and she can't do all of this stuff. She's got to take care of her mother. She's got to do this. And just strip that away and just allow herself to be a normal human being that feels things. So it became productive instead of just ornament. Like, this is a Hollywood film. We have to have this in there, kind of thing.
Yeah. Patrick, what's something that shocked you about this movie?
Shocked me.
Yes.
Shocked me. I don't know if anything shocked me about the film. Maybe there's another verb.
Well, maybe besides the fact that Joel liked it.
Now, okay.
Okay.
Joel, don't listen to your father. Listen to me.
How about what stood out for you?
I think I was shocked by the fact that these genres work together so well. I had never seen that combination of things, and I was shocked at how satisfying it was, how much pain there was in it. Anyone who ever really got their eyes lit up by a traveling performer at some point in their life, yeah, especially as a kid, and knowing they were going away and that this was ending, is a very resonant thing that still really sticks with me. Uh, and so that really got me, and it still gets me.
If I could ask any celebrity one question, I would ask Clint Eastwood, did he get the inspiration from Pale Rider from this? Because I do see some of Pale Rider in this movie a bit. Not
Certainly
a lot.
The accent.
Not right. Well,
You mean the townspeople coming together against maybe a force of not so.
that and when Clint did Pale Rider, he embraced finally telling a ghost story, because that's what Pale Rider ultimately is. It's a ghost story. This is not a ghost story. It's a story about magic, and like you said, the townspeople coming together. But also there's adults who do say, hey, we don't want to sell our town, and they don't know that the railroad's coming through within a month, and the evil man who has all the money does. He's aware of it. He's trying to buy them off. And so you have those elements. Now, I would say with this movie, the antagonist in this movie doesn't start off as bad as the Hood. The Hood are pure evil in Pale Rider. He does resort to violence and evil deeds, but unbeknownst to him, here's Dr. Lau, who has this pure at heart magic. And the little boy Mike is really one of the most underrated characters I've seen in a Western ever. Great character, because you can tell the kid does have a spark of magic in him, because innocent, when you're a kid, what's the one thing you have is your own innocence. And a lot of things we see as kids affect us certain ways. Here's a kid, when he sees something evil being done, what's he going to do? He goes and tells an adult. He goes and gets Dr. Lau. He does the right thing. He's pure of heart too, and Dr. Lau sees that in him. It's a great movie, message-wise, and just fun to watch. Sorry,
This was the kind of movie that my parents would take us to see at like the drive-in theater or at the old vaudeville house that used to be in Bangor, where there was the biggest screen in town, kind of thing. The first movie I ever saw was a Technicolor movie. This was Metro Color, which was The Unsinkable Molly Brown. And the print that they showed, I remember this. I was only 4 years old. Came out in '64, the same year as this film. I remember this because the print they had was lurid. Everybody, because of the Technicolor, wasn't balanced quite properly. You saw how they used orange makeup on some of the actors. It looked orange. And so Debbie Reynolds looked a little orange in the print that I saw. And I remember that. That was like, wow.
It always comes back to Trump. It always comes back to Trump.
Yeah, he's kind of Technicolor in
orange.
What kind of way? Okay.
And orange.
Yes, and very orange. But that's what they used to use in Technicolor. They used to use an orange tinged makeup. There's stories about somebody told the story about being on one of the sets where Marilyn Monroe was working, and she was wearing that kind of makeup because it was a Technicolor movie. I don't know if it was Gentlemen for Blondes or 7-Year Itch or whatever it was, but apparently they did have a special blend of makeup that they used for those cameras. But anyway, that would have been the kind of movie that they would have taken us to see as kids. There's no doubt about it. It was that, it was kind of an adventure movie with like the magic and mystery of the whole thing, with a good message.
It is one of those. There are three great kids movies that I think still work at any age, and I really put them on par with each other, although others might disagree. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory,
Yes.
Mhm.
It's a wonderfully dark film and has a lot in common with this.
Yes.
Wonka has a Dr. Lowe's sense of wonder and cruelty to him. And Wizard of Oz, of course, and this, and I really wish this got more airtime and somehow had that hook to be as appreciated as the other two.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. It's a well crafted movie. The message is positive, but it's not pablum. It's definitely not that. So,
What's you guys' favorite scene in this movie?
Apollonius. That certainly is the most. Well, there's a lot of heart wrenching moments in the movie, but that's one of them. And his two handers with Mike,
Yeah.
all just land perfectly. This is the figure that David Collins needed in his life.
yes,
It
absolutely.
really is.
Yeah. That compass that kids need. I would say that scene with Merlin and the kid.
Oh God, yes,
Definitely awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say my personal favorite is not just the Merlin scene, but the scene where um, Dr. Lau and Mike are sitting, and Lau gives that speech. And my favorite quote is, "When you pick up a handful of sand, it's no longer dust; it's a mystery." That is the circus of Dr. Lau. And the kid, Mike asks, "What does that mean?" And Dr. Lau says, "I don't know." And they just start dancing because why not?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a perfectly Zen moment that doesn't need a stick.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great fantasy film. What do you guys give this 1 out of 10?
I give it a 10.
Yeah.
I think movies and cinematic storytelling in a small way were changed by this. I think it accomplishes everything it sets out to do. I can't think of anything I would do to improve it. I adore the film.
It's also got Charles Beaumont as a screenwriter.
It sure as hell does.
Yeah, I give it a 10.
Yeah, I give it a 10 too.
We all give it a 10. 10s across the board.
Yep. It's a beautiful movie.
Is there anything you guys want to add about this movie before we go?
I think it was the peak of Tony Randall's versatility.
Yes.
He was always a fine actor, and sometimes understated, sometimes like I say, playing the urbane sidekick, the sort of the sense of the audience, while Rock Hudson or somebody is careening headlong into disaster, and he's going, wait a minute, you shouldn't do that, and if you're going to do that, let me help you cover it up, that sort of thing. And he's brilliant at that sort of thing. But this movie is just, he gets to do it all, really. He gets to play those down and dark moments. He gets to play the heartfelt sort of empathy for the characters. And I think he's always empathetic. It's just that sometimes his honesty, when he's telling that woman's fortune, it's just like it's not that he's completely devoid of empathy. It's just that his duty in that moment is to tell the truth.
And how many times has that character been down that road?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, that's the thing too. You have a town that has immoral people in it, but not everybody is immoral. There are moral people. It's just you have people on the right side of the track and the wrong side of the track, and they
You also have frightened people.
Yeah.
People that are afraid, and that oftentimes derails you right off any track.
Yeah.
That you're on too.
So. Yeah, but this is a great movie and a fun watch. What do you guys want to cover next? Anything?
Somebody else's turn.
Let's let Alan choose.
Alan, what do you want?
Oh my God, what am I going to choose? Okay. Well, we've been talking about we've been talking about. We'll talk a little bit about Peter Sellers. Anybody here have a? How about let's do Being There?
We did Being There.
You already done.
one
You've done
more
Being There. Okay. How about
Did-
A Shot in the Dark?
Shot in the Dark, William Peter Blatty.
There you
Yeah.
go. So is tomorrow night good, guys, for everybody here?
Yeah.
Okay.
10:30.
Gordon, is it okay for you?
Yep, it works.
Okay.
Have you
Tomorrow
seen Shot in the Dark?
once.
I may have seen it. I may have seen it when I was a kid, but I
Oh,
don't
my
remember it.
God, you're really in for a good time. Oh, it's a delight.
It is. It's a very cool movie.
Now we're talking about the 1935 Shot in the Dark, right?
You're correct. Yeah, of course.
That is a real shot in the dark, Gordon.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
there've been a lot of.
I mean, Shot in the Dark came out around the same time as this film too.
We're certainly not talking about the Ozzy Osbourne song, but
No.
that's a good song. But still,
Yep, ladies and gentlemen, we're going off the rails of the crazy train tonight.
Yes.
All right, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Shot in the Dark it is.
Links to Patrick
I know.
McCray's Saturday's Day book is going to be in the description box. Link to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box, and link to Alan Gallant's Dark Shadows channel. Colin Sport After Dark is going to be in the description box. Good night, guys, and God
Good
bless.
night, gentlemen.
Good night, all.
Right.